If you've been watching government contracting content online, you've probably seen somebody tell you, go find a contract, submit a bid, and then hopefully you win. No, that's not the part that I'm interested in showing you today. I want to show you what happens between actually finding the opportunity and actually submitting something the government can actually evaluate. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Deborah Smith. I am the owner of Poobs Logistics, LLC, a women-owned small business, executive coaching business. I'm going to take you today inside of what a real government contract solicitation looks like and show you exactly what I would be looking at before I ever hit submit. And I'm going to show you the part that most people aren't really sharing. Okay, it's the compliance. All right, so today, this particular opportunity that you can see on my screen was for soil and material hauling at Yosemite National Park. And before you say, okay, it's just a trucking contract, that's exactly why I actually want to use it. Okay, because government contracting isn't about whether you know how to drive a truck or not. Okay, it's about whether you understand what the government is actually asking you to submit. So this was an RFQ. Okay, RFQ means request for quote. We are just asking for a price. And the solicitation literally says that quotes have to be submitted according to the instructions. And failure to follow those instructions could result in the quote not being considered for award at all. Okay, so we're going to pay attention to that. That's your very first lesson. Before you price anything, you must read the instructions. Okay, so let's take a look at this together. The government tells the offerer exactly what they want inside of this checklist. A, checklist for quote submittal. You're already set up for success. Everything we're looking at here is what the government is requesting us to submit. Completed solicitation page, signed documents, applicable amendment. Anytime you hear the word amendment in government contracting, it means a change was made. A change was made to the solicitation, like maybe answers were put out to questions that were asked by the competition. Or maybe the deadline of the contract actually changed and now an amendment needs to go out. You must actually sign that amendment and return it with your proposal to acknowledge the fact that you saw the amendment go out and you're acknowledging the fact that you saw it. Okay, completed provisions. This government contract, we needed to talk about a project narrative. Okay, that's where we need to break down what we're going to utilize, and how we're going to show up to actually perform the work on site. But our subcontractor is performing the work on site. So everything you see in this contract will be deemed towards the middleman strategy. Okay, the types of capacities and hauling of trucks, how many trips you're proposing per day, and also the condition of your equipment. So whether you have backup equipment if something fails, the government is making a request. And I want to be straightforward with you. The government has a lot of problems. And what government contracting is offering you the opportunity to solve the government's problem. And the bigger the problems that you solve, the more money you will make. If you solve small problems, you will make small money. If you solve big problems, you will have bigger payouts. Okay, so your instructions are first, and this is actually a proposal that we put together. Every single line you see here must be filled out. You don't want to skip any lines on a contract when you are submitting it to the government. That can deem you non-responsive, which means you're missing sections of the government contract and you just want it to look complete. Okay, so when you're bidding on a government contract, I want you to go over every single document at least 3 times to double check that you have every line filled out completely. Okay, so we're going to move to number 2. Now, this is a cover photo. Okay, this cover photo shows. Now, notice how I used a bobcat, right? You're allowed to be creative on government contracts. Okay, it's not just a brown suit in a brown suitcase anymore, right? Like we're in the age where creativity is open and you're allowed to be yourself. At least around here, you know, with our core values, you are. So when we bid on a government contract, we like to show personality. Okay, we also use the hashtag. We handle the heavy lifting so you don't have to. A cover page is very easy to understand for the contracting officer that you know what this contract requires. Okay, you have our name, we have the contracting officer's name, and we also just made it a little fun. Like this, you know, we're not taking it too seriously here. And then we also picked the bobcat because it correlates with what is being requested. This is a good looking cover page. Our company name, our certifications, it is all there. Okay, this is a contract that was submitted to the government. What tool did we use to create this cover page? Canva. And you can use it for free. Okay, it is a free tool that is very friendly that will help you understand how to build cover pages. Okay, and some of you are probably very familiar with it already. So they want a company overview. Now they requested a company overview, okay? And this is a live and this is an exclusive because you need to see what it looks like for you to send the government a proposal. Now, I added my photo. A lot of what we do in government contracting is behind the scenes. We use tablets, we use laptops, we use cell phones, right? A lot of government contracting officers don't have the ability to meet us face to face unless pre-bid meetings are involved. And what that is when you sit down via Zoom or in person, a site visit is the same. And you get to meet the contracting officer face to face. Not every contract has that. So I think it's very important to be yourself. And I added my photo. This is who is going to be bidding on the contract. This is the company overview. And here are some of the advantages and the core that we bring to this contract that are going to help us successfully be able to execute with our subcontractor. Okay. Heavy haul, expertise and coordination and transportation, that was huge on a soil project. So while my subcontractor is going to bring in, and I'll show you in the next couple pages, my sub is going to bring the equipment, work on site. We handled the compliance and the communication with the government. But we had experience logistically in the supply chain. Okay, so for my company, DD Logistics, and my subcontractor to merge together, subcontracting is about partnership. Okay, because you still have to project management. I also use Canva for the competitive advantages. All right, and I'm very excited to show you this because I had a client that asked me, what does a government contract look like? He was in one of the Facebook groups. He was very confused. He's like, I have everything put together, but I'm not really sure where to go from here. Can you share a contract with me? And I said, absolutely. I used to be you. I was not always an expert. I started with one contract and one dream, and I just kept going. Okay. And this is something that I want to share with my community because I feel like it will be so helpful for you to see this. So let's move into past performance. And let me ask you this. I want you to comment with the answer. Do you see what's happening here? They're not asking, tell us that you're a great company. They're asking, show us, the government is asking me, show us that you understand the requirement and you can actually perform it. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. Okay. That's a completely different mindset. All right. So I worked with a great subcontractor. I called 10 subcontractors in the area. I asked them, can you do the work? If so, can you give me a price? I found those subcontractors on Google. And to be honest with you, I found this subcontractor on Facebook Marketplace. Good subcontractors are everywhere. He didn't know how to bid on a government contract. He just wanted to do what he loved. So he was willing to partner with me to bring in consistent work to his business and to be able to keep going from there, right? So definitely an amazing time. Hold on one. Definitely a time where you want to understand that subcontractors can come from Google, they can come from Facebook, they can come from any different platform where you can leave reviews. You can even find subcontractors on Yelp, right? So I come to him and I say, listen, we have a project in Yosemite Valley. It just so happens that this is what he does for a living. And I did not use any of my past performance. Okay. So this is one of the biggest mistakes I see small businesses make. They write a beautiful company biography, right? They talk about how passionate they are. They talk about customer service. They talk about how long they've been in the business, all of these things, but they don't answer the solicitation. So understanding that government contracting is not the place to just freestyle how amazing you are. You have to correlate and understand what they are asking for. 250 cubic yards of soil needed to be moved from one site to another. When I asked my subcontractor to send me photos, I was very clear on the project. The photo of him holding soil in his hand, his machinery at site, those are previous projects that he worked on that match the scope of work. And the scope of work is requesting what the government needs from you. The solicitation is your blueprint. Okay. If the government asks you for 5 things, I only want to see 5 things. If the government would have never mentioned past performance, you would not see it on this proposal. I would not have added it because it wasn't requested. So make sure you're only adding things that are being requested of you. Okay. I'm giving the relevant experience. That's how you start thinking like a government contracting expert. Okay. Now, this particular bid, the contract provided prior work involving hauling dirt, fill dirt, and there was 120 cubic yards of clay, concrete and clay that needed to be moved. Well, my subcontractor had past performance there as well. He sent me a picture of his previous site that he was working on where they were actually moving and hauling concrete and clay. Another bonus about my subcontractor, now we figured this out all through conversation, that he actually worked on a project at Yosemite Valley. Now he becomes the subcontractor that already understands the location. He was the best option for me. And in this project, I called 14 subcontractors. He was the quickest to respond. He had the most relative experience. He knew the site already before I did because I was in New York and I was bidding on a contract in California. He was very familiar with the site. Okay, so that's powerful because it's it's directly relevant to the requirement. Okay, and that's really one thing that I enjoyed. So this isn't, I once delivered something in another state. This is experience that he had that connects to the actual work that was being requested. Relevance matters. Okay, now this is where I want you to really pay attention, right? The requirement was calling for 250 cubic yards of soil. The government requested that we ask what kind of equipment we're using. So guess who I asked? My subcontractor. And he sent me the photos of the equipment that he was going to be using on site when he arrived. Okay, now this was a request from the government. Here's the equipment that we're going to use. All of these photos, 1, 2, 3, they requested you must use trucks in the year of 2023 and 2024. Can't use anything equipment-wise under that. So he gave us more phenomenal pictures. This is what a good proposal looks like. Okay. Now, one thing that we're going to talk about, the safety requirements, the park entry requirements, the anticipated timeline, my subcontractor understood that all because I broke that down to him in our conversation. When I'm scouting subcontractors, I'm vetting them 100%. From the way that they respond to the prices that I ask them for, to how quickly they respond to the quotes that I give them. If a subcontractor, you're just asking them for a price, you pick up the phone and they're nasty and they're rude, it's okay to walk away and not use that subcontractor, because if they're acting like that now, 9 times out of 10, they're going to act like that on a government project, and we don't want that. We want to make sure we're picking compliant subcontractors, okay? Because you understand the procurement side. They just want to do the job, which they're good at. A lot of subcontractors that I work with love to work with me because I understand procurement and they understand their operations, and we come together for success. So when you hear me say things like, you can win a government contract without doing the work, this is what I mean, okay? This is what I mean, right? Subcontractor does the work, I handle the communication with the government, and we manage the project while the sub handles the on-site work. Okay, now let's take a look at pricing, right? Because this is the part that people skip, right? And here's another lesson. Government contracting is not just about being qualified. It's about being credible, okay? If I'm the contracting specialist reading your quote, I should be able to look at your response and understand, what are you using? How are you performing? How long will it take? Okay, these are all valid questions. Have you ever done something similar? And if you notice, the past performance was not mine. The past performance came from my subcontractor, okay? What happens if something goes wrong? That's risk mitigation, okay? And does your price make sense? Which brings us here. Now, requirement A, load and haul 250 cubic yards of soil from the Rocky Point restoration site. Option A1, requirement B. So what happened here was my subcontractor came in and said, Deborah, we're going to operate and we're going to do this for $65.87. I added an additional $10. Okay, that gave us a total of $24,398.75. Now, if you look on line item number 2, 00020, now we're looking at a different requirement. Load and haul up to 120 cubic yards of soil from the Rocky Point restoration site. If you scroll back into this video, you will see that everything that's in this contract points to this scope of work. The equipment, the past performance, the checklist, the documents, everything matches what they are requesting, okay? Now, a question that I get a lot is, what percentage should you be adding for the markup? Every contract is different. For us, some contracts it's 8 to 12%. Other contracts it's 12 to 15%. We have never went over 30% increase because we use the subcontractor model. Now, I want to be open with you. The subcontractor model is not something you're going to have to utilize forever, okay? You're not going to have to utilize it forever. And what that means is you can use it for scaling and you can also use it for growth. Because what's happening is you're utilizing the middleman strategy to bring in capital to grow your current operations. And what do I mean by that? Right? You're a landscaping company, but you just started. You don't have a lot of capital coming in. So you want to use the middleman strategy. If you watch my interview with Ella, she is a staffing company, but she won an HVAC contract. When she won the HVAC contract and they went on site to do the work, she collected the profit and she put it into her staffing business to grow. Now, 2 years later, she can go for staffing contracts because she has the capital from the middleman strategy to be able to scale and grow. And the same thing happened to me. DD Logistics used the subcontractor model. That capital now, 3 years later, was invested into Poobs Logistics LLC, and we're just now going after contracts that meet what we do. I am an executive coach. I train on procurement. I am now, 3 years later, going after contracts that meet that requirement, making me the prime. We are just now at a point where we have the option to use the middleman strategy. Okay, so it's not something you have to utilize forever, but in the beginning, if you're thinking like an entrepreneur, scaling and growing, the middleman strategy is where you want to be. Okay, that's the best call out for you. All right, here's our overall pricing. Now let's talk about money. The government provided a pricing schedule for the base requirements and option quantities. And the solicitation specifically says the detailed price schedule is used as a basis for price, realism, and balance. Okay, that's very important because pricing a government contract isn't what's the highest number I can get away with. And it also isn't, oh, I want to be the cheapest bidder, right? You'll need to understand the requirements well enough to build a price that is defensible, realistic, and aligned with the work. That is a different skill. Okay. So let me give you 3 things. All right. I want you to learn before you start bidding on government contracts. Okay. It is number one, you have to learn compliance. Okay. You have to learn compliance. They drive me nuts with this read AI meeting thing. So you have to understand compliance. That's very big in the government contracting space. Okay. All right. So that's very big. Don't just find opportunities, learn how to read the instructions and build a submission around them. Number 2, learn how to translate the requirement into an execution plan. What does that look like? It looks like what equipment, what personnel, how many trips are there going to be? What's the timeline? What's the risk? I mean, at the end of the day, we're still entrepreneurs. We're still running businesses, okay? And there's a separate mindset here. A lot of us come from a 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship. If you feel like you're struggling, I have a workbook that I'm going to link below. And what that workbook is mindset shift from 9 to 5 to entrepreneurship. Because in the beginning of my journey, I did not have a lot of people who understood what government contracting was. I have just now, in the last 3 years, I'm extremely grateful, built a community. But I want you to understand that mindset matters. I spent a lot of time with YouTube gurus. I spent a lot of time with Dr. Kizzy Parks, who I love. But I want you to know that your mindset plays a very big role in government contracting. You don't have a boss hovering over you. You don't need permission to be great. You pick the solicitations that you want, okay? And then you decide who you're going to listen to. Two separate mindsets. So if you want that workbook, it will be in the description. Number 3, learn how to price the requirement, okay? Not emotionally, not randomly, okay? Not because you saw somebody else charge a certain amount. All right, we're not doing that. Understand what the government is buying and building, you're pricing around the actual scope of work. Okay? And here's the part that I really want you to understand. The opportunity is not the contract. The opportunity is learning how to respond correctly to the contract. Because anybody can search for an opportunity. Anybody can download an RFQ. Anybody can say, oh, I'm going after government contracts. Yay. But when you put a solicitation in front of them, can they actually build the response? That is where the game changes. Okay. And that is exactly why I created my training. Okay. Because I don't want to just teach you how to find government contracts. I want you to understand what you're looking at once you actually find one. Okay. Inside the training, we're going deeper, much deeper into the things you're seeing me demonstrate right now. How to read a solicitation, how to identify the actual requirements, how to make a bid, no bid decision. There's a lot of government contracts out there. You need to learn how to make a bid, no bid decision. Go or no go, okay? How to build your response around compliance, how to approach pricing, and how to position your company's experience overall. And how to stop looking at government contracts like they're these mysterious government documents that only somebody else can understand. You are good enough to bid on a government contract. They're just procurement documents. And once you learn how to read them, they actually start talking to you. Okay, so if you've been watching government contracting content and you're wondering, okay, but what does the bid actually look like that I'm going to send to the contracting officer? I've never actually seen one. Well, now you have. Welcome to my channel. And if you're new here, please subscribe because we are on the journey to help you win your first government contract. We offer a lot of solutions, whether it is bidding for you, teaching you the blueprint, mentorship, one-on-one coaching, mindset workbooks. It is all created around you having success in the government contracting space. Okay? My goal isn't to make another government contracting channel. My goal is actually to build the biggest government contracting education channel on YouTube. And if we're going to get there, I'm going to teach you the real game, not the fantasy, not the hype. I'm going to teach you the paperwork, the strategy, the compliance, and ultimately the contract. I appreciate you. I'm very grateful to have you here. And you know, whatever you are thinking that is good, think bigger. Bye for now.